Org.
WADR 94.9 Promoting Dialogue. WADR 94.
WADR. You can listen to us on 94.9 FM in Dakar through our website www.wadr.org. WADR, promoting dialogue.
Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Authorities in Benin announced trial date for Olivier Boko and OSIWA Lomeki in the case of the alleged coup attempt. Opposition Ivorian Popular Front FPI calls on the government to organize a political dialogue. The Gambia received military hardware worth over $4 million from Turkey.
The $4 million, $280 million project materialized under the Military Financial Cooperation Agreement between our countries is the firm commitment of Turkey to the Smiling Coast.
And the Press Union of Liberia condemns harassment of journalists by national police.
So we have to speak on this matter publicly so that we make our international partners in the government of Liberia to know that what the police is doing is in fact a violation.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Let's begin this edition from Benin, where the long-awaited trial of Olivier Boko and OSIWA Lomeki, two key figures in the case of the alleged coup attempt against Beninese President Patrice Talon, will open on January 21, 2025. The case will be examined as part of the criminal session, which begins on January 20 at the Court for the Repression of Economic Offences and Terrorism Create. Christopher Teacher brings us more details in this report.
Olivier Boko, a longtime close collaborator of President Patrice Talon, and Oswald Homike, former Minister of Sports, were arrested in 2024 and accused of plotting against state security. The charges include attempted coup d'etat, corruption of a public official, endangering state security, and money laundering. According to the prosecution, the two men orchestrated actions aimed at overthrowing the government in place and destabilizing the institutions of the Beninese state. The case has sparked heated debate among the public and the political class. Boko and Homike's defense has denounced irregularities in the judicial procedure, claiming that their fundamental rights had been violated. Petitions were filed with the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court to challenge the legality of the procedure, but these appeals were rejected, paving the way for their trial before the Create. The opening of the criminal session of the Create on January 20 and the trial of the two defendants, scheduled for the following days, are particularly anticipated. Beyond the accusations, this case reflects deep political tensions in the country. The next few days will be crucial in determining whether Olivier Boko or Oswald Homike are found guilty or exonerated of the charges against them.
Christopher Teacher filed a report in neighboring Togo. Several socio-political organizations are calling for election of a new president. They rejected the new constitution that moves the country from a presidential to a parliamentary regime. For these organizations, Foreign Asingbe must not have a fifth term, urging him to hand over the reins from February 20, the dates on which his current term is supposed to end, according to the old constitution of 1992. David Oze is the spokesman for the Togo Debout Front.
Today, we are told that the Togolese will no longer have the right to go to a presidential election to choose their president. The Togolese simply have to accept the principle of a new constitution that was promulgated last year on 6 May 2024. This new constitution provides for a president of the Council of Ministers chosen by the deputies, who is the leader of the majority party. So this is a somewhat disguised way of allowing the current president after 20 years in power, to continue in peace by being the president of the Council of Ministers, holding all executive power, and having no limitation on membership. I think that this is a disguised way of creating a presidency for life, and as a citizen, we cannot accept that when the fourth world comes to an end in February 2025. Since the last presidential election was held on 20th February 2020, the Togolese are preparing for a presidential election so that young people can see the truth and choose a new personality to lead the decades of Togo. We are being told that there will be no more elections, that the latest constitution, which was promulgated in May 2024, proposes or imposes the post of president, and that elections are a little more possible.
Impose le poste de président de conseil et que les élections sont plus possibles.
It should be noted that these socio-political organizations commemorated on Monday the 62nd anniversary of the assassination of the first Togolese president, Sylvanus Olympio. In Côte d'Ivoire, one of the opposition parties, the Ivorian Popular Front, FPI, is calling on the government to organize an inclusive political dialogue before the presidential election in October 2025 in order to avoid crises linked to the electoral process. In a statement, the FPI recalled that the lack of inclusive dialogue before the 2010 and 2020 elections caused serious suffering for the country, both during and after the vote. Francis Boniface completes the story.
The party led by former Prime Minister Afin Gwesan stated that all opposition political parties strongly demand this dialogue, but deplores that the government remains insensitive to this request and diverts its attention. The FPI wonders if the government do not care about the peace of the Ivorians, stressing the importance of these discussions to avoid the tragic repetition of post-election crises. The FPI also refers to the wishes expressed by President Alassane Ouattara by the spokesperson for the diplomats during the New Year's discussions, who expressed the hope for a peaceful, democratic, inclusive and transparent election in 2025. During these discussions, President Ouattara expressed his desire to continue to serve his country without directly responding to the question of his candidacy for 2025. The FPI criticizes this response, stressing that the question of his candidacy should not be debated in such a formal manner during a diplomatic meeting. Ouattara, 83, was re-elected for a contested third term in 2020. He has previously said he would like to step down, but has also suggested he would need old rivals to commit to withdrawing from politics too.
Francis Boniface filed that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Turkey has handed over 17 armored personnel carriers to the Gambia, costing over $4 million. The military equipment is expected to boost the Gambia Armed Forces, their effort to upscale UN peacekeeping missions in the region and around the world. Sankli Danko reports.
The 17 armored vehicles were donated to the Gambia Armed Forces at a ceremony held at State House in Banjul. The donation is part of the military financial cooperation between the Turkish and Gambia Armed Forces. Speaking at the handing over ceremony, the Turkish ambassador to the Gambia, Troka Oba, hailed the long-standing relations between the Gambia and Turkey, adding the equipment will elevate the Gambia to a new threshold in its military status.
The $4 million, $280 million project materialized under the military financial cooperation agreement between our countries is the firm commitment of Turkey to the Smiling Coast. Indeed, military and security cooperation has been the main pillar of our relations since 1991. I'm pleased to observe that with this handover, the Gambia has reached a new threshold.
Meanwhile, President Adama Barrow commended the Turkish authorities for their kind gesture while highlighting the importance of the armored personnel carriers.
This support will significantly increase the military capability of the Gambia Armed Forces, GAF, to carry out their constitutional mandate of safeguarding the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the country. By extension, it will enable them to fulfill their obligation of participating in international peacekeeping missions. I must observe quickly that my government places a high premium on national defense and security.
Valued at $280 million, or its equivalent of $4 million, the state-of-the-art armored personnel carriers will greatly assist the Gambia in its peacekeeping missions around the continent and beyond. The Chief of Defense Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces, Mamat Ochan, explains how valuable this equipment is to the Army and how they will utilize them.
These state-of-the-art vehicles, designed to provide enhanced protection and mobility, will serve as a strong enhancement of the Gambia Armed Forces' operational readiness. With their deployment, Gambia Armed Forces is now positioned to meet the stringent requirements of any future UN peacekeeping mission. The APCs will also bolster our capacity to respond to domestic security challenges, ensuring the safety and security of our citizens.
Gambian authorities held the military financial cooperation agreement between the two armed forces, which also includes the financing of training and capacity building packages for Gambian military personnel in prominent military institutions in Turkey.
Sakule Janko filed that report. The International Criminal Police Organization Interpol said on Tuesday an operation targeting illegal mining activities in Burkina Faso, the Gambia, Guinea and Senegal resulted in the arrest of 200 people between July and October 2024. The agency said in West Africa an operation called SANU has led to the arrest of several hundreds people, including in illegal gold mining, in 4 months, adding that the vast operation was carried out for judicial cooperation. Let's have the details here with Echatisu.
Interpol said that the major cleanup operation, therefore, in the illegal gold mining sector in West Africa concerns 4 countries, including Senegal, the Gambia, Burkina Faso and Guinea. Between July and October 2024, the International Criminal Police Organization, by mobilizing around 100 agents in these countries, was able to arrest 200 people involved in these clandestine activities. The Interpol press release also mentions the seizure of a large quantity of products used in gold extraction, namely 150 kilos of cyanide, 325 kilos of activated carbon, 14 bottles of mercury, and 7,000 explosive devices, all of which have a strong and catastrophic impact on the health of populations and the environment. Seizures also included 10 kilos of cocaine and also opioid-based painkillers. These are drugs that miners use and often abuse to be able to endure these extremely difficult gold planning work. It should be noted that the fight against gold mining was not Interpol's only goal. In the Gambia, in the Kombo region, the police dismantled a sand and gravel extraction network, an activity which once again threatens the environment and causes damage to the soil and local agriculture.
Echatisu filed that report. The government of Nigeria still plans to revise its GDP calculation by incorporating informal and illegal economic activities, aiming to provide a more accurate picture of its economy. Baba Madu, head of the National Bureau of Statistics National Accounts Division, highlighted the importance of the step, noting that informal activities like street vending, smuggling and unregistered labor significantly impact the formal economy, emphasizing that income from these sectors, though outside legal frameworks, contribute to the nation's overall economic structure. WADR's Usman Marin Abuja has been gauging opinions of experts on this development.
This is Nigeria's first major GDP revision since 2014, when a rebasing exercise increased the GDP by 89%. While the new approach will capture hidden activities, concerns remain about addressing structural issues in the informal sector. Economist Mukhtar Suleiman praised the move, stating that including the informal sector would enhance data accuracy and improve economic planning.
Well, GDP rebasing is good for the economy because, again, it looks at how much your economy has been able to grow in terms of new entry into your economy. The economy is not supposed to be static, it's supposed to be innovative. So when you look at the 2014, we did that, a lot of things have happened. Normally, GDP rebasing takes every 5 years because of a lot of economic evolution at that point. At the time we did the GDP rebasing, we only have Ministry of Communication. But now we have Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy.
Similarly, an investment banker, Adebayo Onadiro, acknowledged the benefit of higher GDP but warned of potential reputational risks. He expressed fear of politicization of the process.
For a lot of people, the big question mark was what exactly is the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics doing? Are figures being politicized or not? I believe as an institution, it should be pretty much independent. it should be able to let people have confidence in its figures.
The recalculation comes as Nigeria, once Africa's largest economy, has dropped to 4th place on the continent. Experts believe that including hidden sectors could substantially elevate the GDP, potentially restoring the country's regional economic standing. This aligns with global practices which recognize the informal sector's contribution to national economies. Nigeria's informal economy, encompassing everything from small-scale trading to illicit oil refining, provides income for millions and often offers more stability than the formal sector. The government hopes that by reflecting these contributions, policymakers can develop better strategies to address challenges like poverty and unemployment. Additionally, showcasing a larger, more comprehensive GDP could attract international investors. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Omar reporting from Abuja.
In the meantime, a fresh batch of 390 stranded Nigerian migrants has been repatriated from Niamey, Niger Republic, as part of ongoing efforts by the federal government to reintegrate citizens back into the country. The returnees, comprising 387 adult males, 2 adult females and 1 infant boy, arrived at the Nigerian Immigration Training School, Kano, at approximately 1:05 a.m. local time on Tuesday. The operation marks the 3rd batch of voluntary returns facilitated by the Nigerian Mission in Niamey in collaboration with the International Organization for Migration, IOM. Officials confirmed that the voluntary returns are part of a broad effort to address migration challenges and provide sustainable solutions for displaced citizens. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, and via partner stations across the sub-region. Here is a reminder of the top stories. Authorities in Benin announced trial date for Olivier Boko and Oswald Meki in the case of the alleged coup attempt. Opposition Ivorian Popular Front, FPI, calls on the government to organize a political dialogue. The Gambia received military hardware worth over $4 million from Turkey. And still ahead in the news, Press Union of Liberia condemns harassment of journalists by the National Police. Health authorities in Sierra Leone declare emergency after a second mpox case in 4 days. We don't have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org and follow live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. Nigeria has adopted a strict ordinance on the entry and stay of foreigners in a context of regional tensions and security concerns. According to a press release from the General Secretariat of the government, the President of the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland, CNSP, General Abdurrahman Chani, signed an order strengthening the legal framework for the entry and stay of foreigners in Niger. The text requires the possession of a valid travel or residence document for any foreigner entering or residing in Niger. Violators risk administrative measures such as expulsion, as well as criminal penalties ranging from 2 to 5 years in prison and fines of between 5 and 50 million CFA francs. According to the General Secretariat of the government, these measures aim to prevent infiltrations and strengthen national security in an uncertain regional climate. Meanwhile, the Press Union of Liberia, PUL, has condemned in strong terms the maltreatment and unjust interrogation of 2 journalists of the Daily Observer newspaper by the Liberia National Police, LNP. The press body, in a statement on Tuesday by its president, Julius Kanoba, said it is particularly disturbed by the conduct of Deputy Police Commissioner for Crime Services, Simeon Frank, and his team of investigators who have subjected journalists Bai Bess and David Yates to harassment, intimidation, and wrongful detention related to their reporting. The PUL emphasizes that the characterization of journalists based on their reporting constitutes an infringement on the right to free expression, contrary to the Constitution of Liberia, the Camara Act of Press Freedom, and the Table Mountain Declaration. Here is the President, Julius Kanoba.
The police has not complained to us that Daily Observer or the journalists ethically transgress. They are only investigating. So we have to speak on this matter publicly so that we make our international partners in the government of Liberia to know that what the police is doing is in fact a violation of the different principles, the different norms that Liberia has signed onto, for example, the Table Mountains in the Declaration, the Camara Act of Press Freedom, and the very constitution of Liberia that guarantees freedom of the press and freedom of expression. I mean, the right to express yourself is guaranteed under the Constitution. If a media institution ethically transgresses, that media institution can be brought to book through the PUL. We have the different mechanisms to hold our own accountable. But if the police continues to hold these journalists as people of interest and suspects, it demands us to speak on the matter.
Well, we do have the full interview on our guest interview segment. In the meantime, health authorities in Sierra Leone have declared a state of emergency on Monday after the country reported its second case of Mpox in less than 4 days. Augustine Coley brings us details in this report.
The health ministry said neither case had known recent contact with infected animals or other sick individuals. Only the first case involved recent travel limited to the airport town of Longyi in the Northern Port Local District between December 26 and January 6. Both patients are receiving treatment at a hospital in the capital Freetown. Mpox, also known as monkeypox, was first identified by scientists in 1958 when outbreaks of a pox-like disease in monkeys occurred. Until recently, most human cases were seen in people in Central and West Africa who had close contact with infected animals. In 2022, the virus was confirmed to spread via sex for the first time and triggered outbreaks in more than 70 countries across the world that had not previously reported Mpox. The Congo has borne the brunt of the epidemic, with a vast majority of the roughly 43,000 suspected cases and 1,000 deaths in Africa last year. Sierra Leone was previously the epicenter of the 2014 Ebola outbreak, the deadliest in history. The outbreak, primarily concentrated in West Africa, affected Sierra Leone the most, with nearly 4,000 deaths out of the more than 11,000 recorded globally. The country also lost 7% of its healthcare workforce to the outbreak.
Augustine Coley filed that report.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Now let's take you back to the trending story from Liberia, as the press union has condemned in strong terms the maltreatment and unjust interrogation of two journalists of the Daily Observer newspaper by the Liberia National Police. Here is the full interview with the president, Kanoba Julius.
The invitation was done in a very cooperative way, in the sense that the Daily Observer was only informed to come and assist the police in its investigation into the mysterious death. But the investigation on the first day turned into a tactic of intimidation, harassment, and molestation of the very journalists who are gone to assist the police. And then in the last few days, the Daily Observer was again invited to appear before the police. They appeared, and on the first day, they signed a form that named the reporter as, or designated the reporter as a person of interest in the mysterious death of this hotel manager. And then the second day, the person of interest changed into a suspect. So we found that as very troubling, because you can't name a journalist who has reported on the death or mysterious and the death of an individual as a person of interest and linking him directly to the death. And then secondly, naming the journalist as a suspect to the death of this general manager of a hotel.
Now, Mr. Kanumba, has the press union been able to find out from the Liberia National Police who has suddenly changed from person of interest to a suspect?
Well, we've not been able to find out from the police. The police is only saying that they are conducting their investigation. And whenever you go to the headquarters of the police, they have a form. So on the form, that's the title of the form, and a suspect. Mm-hmm. So if you sign a form that names you as a suspect, it becomes concerning. The first form said a person of interest form. You gave your particulars, your details, and then explain the story that you wrote. The second form says a suspect. So they are not providing any information. So if you don't want to comply, they will tell you that you are not in compliance with what they want. So they cannot release you to go home, or they cannot release you to go back to work. And they've been able to disturb the reporter and the managing director of the Daily Observer and hold them in restraint, meaning that they are not moving. And in fact, the police printed some sort of a document they wanted the Daily Observer journalists to sign as the story that was published, and the Daily Observer refused to do that.
How long will the press union continue to stand by these journalists amid the ongoing investigation by the police?
We will continue to stand by the journalists until this matter is brought to a logical conclusion. It is the role of the PUL to advocate for the protection of free speech and freedom of expression in the media in Liberia. The PUL also works to strengthen journalists' rights, to defend and protect the rights of journalists. So as long as their rights are being violated, we will continue to stand by them. If there are issues bordering on the content of the story, ethically, if the police feels that they ethically transgress, that's another thing. Because the press union will not stand by any institution, by any journalist that violates the ethical code of journalism.
Julius Kanuba is the president of the Press Union of Liberia. And here is Sport News with Sankle Janko.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Nigeria's new head coach Eric Shell says he is ready to lead the Super Eagles as the head coach for the task that lay ahead. The Malian tactician, who was unveiled by the Nigerian Football Federation on Monday, also emphasized the importance of scoring goals.
Football is about scoring goals. My former team scored 42 goals and conceded 13 goals. I'm an ambitious coach. I want to win. I'm ready to work. I come to work and I'm ready.
The appointment of Shell has divided opinions among Nigerian football stakeholders. However, former Nigeria Football Federation President Amaju Pinnick has called for Nigerians to throw their support behind Shell, adding he has what it takes to lead Nigeria to success.
I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be easy. It's going to be very, very tough. But I believe he is very, very well prepared for it. He's got a record, and I believe we should believe in him. We should look at the content of what he wants to provide.
Mr. Pinnick also called for Africans to support their own coaches, citing the likes of former Senegalese coach Aliou Cisse, who was a success with the Teranga Lions of Senegal, leading them to their first ever AFCON title.
I can also go back to Cisse, the coach of Senegal. If Cisse were to come to Nigeria, are you going to say the same thing? If even Faye, the coach of Cote d'Ivoire, the young enterprising guy. So let's be very proud. Africa is one big continent, but it's like a country. So it's not just us. Also, we have Nigerians at export. Amunike at a point was the coach of Tanzania. Keshi was the coach of Togo and qualified them for the World Cup.
Meanwhile, Shell has been tasked to secure qualification for Nigeria to the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Nigerians will have a glimpse of his tactics when the Super Eagles take on Rwanda and Benin in the World Cup qualifiers in March this year. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
Sankle Janko Sport News there. And that's it on this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mauro Jufan Umudanyogo for the technical support. Do connect with us on all of our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WDR News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Imo Edit. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via